Okay, my latest video, unfortunately not on one of my cars, on a friend's car, is this beautiful Lamborghini Islero. The name is from a name of a bull that killed a famous matador named Manuel Rodriguez, also known as Manolete. This car, the Islero, was only built for 2 years, 1968 and 1969, and it was a replacement for the 400 GT that Lamborghini had before that. The 400 GT styling was getting a little old, so it was time to do a redo, and the 400 GT had been done by Carrozzeria Touring, but they went bankrupt, so Lamborghini was looking for a different bodybuilder, and one of the touring employees had formed his own company called Carrozzeria Marazzi, and he was chosen to do the design work. The chassis is basically the exact same running gear and chassis that was on the 400 GT. They just modified it a little to allow for the wider Campagnolo wheels and tires. It is considered to be a better or more comfortable car to drive in because it's quieter than the 400 GT, and it's a little roomier with better outward visibility. Of note is the windows. I presume the side windows were designed to have only one dimension of curvature. They're not compound curves, so that made them less expensive to manufacture. The weight of the car is 2,734 pounds. Top speed is 154 miles an hour. It does have a fully independent suspension, when at this time Ferrari and Maserati were tending to still have live axles with leaf springs. This is the 1968 version, which is called just the Islero, and in 1969 they made some changes and called it the Islero S. The S version had a slightly larger hood scoop and some slightly flared fenders. There's some side vents behind the front wheels on the S version. They also changed the dashboard some. The toggle switches seen on this car were replaced by rocker switches because of U.S. safety laws. And also the S versions pretty much all came with power steering and air conditioning. There were 125 of this initial version made, and the S version they made 100, so the total output was somewhere around 225 or 226, depending on who you read. One of the fascinating facts is that Mr. Lamborghini actually drove an Islero as his personal car for a while. And I read somewhere, and I don't know if this is true, that an Islero is the only Lamborghini to ever qualify at Le Mans. Now, someone wrote that it qualified at Le Mans, and someone wrote that someone had taken it to Le Mans and tried to qualify and was unable to. So I'm not sure how accurate that is. So at the time that the Islero was being made, they were also making the Miura and the Espada for those 2 years. It's interesting that all three of them cost about the same amount of money initially. I think they were $20,000 each. Obviously the values now vary quite a bit. The Miuras are worth a fortune. The Isleros have gone up quite a bit in value. I think I saw one went fairly recently for somewhere north of 200,000, and the poor four-seater Espada, even though I think it's a beautiful car, are running in the $50,000–$60,000 range. They all have pretty much the same engine. It's just the more seats you put in a car, apparently the less the value is. So the Islero is actually a 2+2, although as you can see the rear seats have essentially no leg room. But I presume that's one of the reasons that its value is less than the Miura, and the fact that its styling isn't quite as dramatic. The seats are quite comfortable. It's all done in leather. You get a full set of gauges, oil temperature, water temperature, big tachometer, oil pressure, speedometer, fuel gauge, and amps. And here you have the rocker switches showing that this is a first generation car. I believe on the S version they actually put a glove box in instead of the panel here. It's got a 5-speed gearbox. I don't know if you can see the pedals, but this is the most heel-toe built car I've ever driven. The accelerator is farther to the left than you would expect, as is the brake, and you can really heel-toe it nicely. And in the back you actually have a good-sized trunk that'll hold a fair number of bags. And those classic quad exhaust pipes. And under the hood is the classic Lamborghini V12 in all its beauty, with the 6 2-barrel big-ass Weber carburetors and the incredibly complex linkage to get them all synchronized. And let's see if we can fire this thing up. So this is the 325 horsepower version. The S model, actually, they upped the horsepower to 350, although it had the same torque output as this engine.